Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of our existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Welcome, everyone, to the second in-person and online recorded Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. Welcome to today's service for June 20th, 2021, with our title of Together Again. We want to, before we just right out of the gate, we want to wish everyone a happy Father's Day out there. All our dads, all the guys who may not have kids of their own, but are positive male role models, and even to the women among us, including single mothers, who have taken on fatherly responsibility and commitments in their lives. We are grateful to you all and celebrate you today. With our covenant group and worship theme for this month of June of endings, we lift up the gradual ending of this prolonged pandemic quarantine time and the growing opportunities that we are having to be together again after such a long time apart, 15 months. And this June being Pride Month, in celebration and solidarity with our family and friends of the larger LGBTQ community, we lift up the desired ending of discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender. And in past months, with a growing awareness of the need to end racial discrimination in our country, we lift up the newly minted national holiday of Juneteenth yesterday, commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. So today's service is being recorded live and will be slightly edited before being posted on our church website and available through a link that will be sent out on our church email tomorrow. Unlike last year when we had to have our annual congregational meeting on Zoom, this year you all are able to participate either in person or on Zoom. And from now until our official first service of our church program year with our annual in-gathering water and earth communion service on September 12th, unfortunately, we will be alternating between in-person services like today that will be recorded and posted the next day, or what we've been doing this past 15 months, pre-recorded services. The main reason why we're continuing to do that is we didn't realize that the restrictions would be lifted as soon as they were, and we had already lined up speakers who don't actually live here. So we have some pre-recorded services mixed with in-person services. We know it will be a little bit confusing during the transition, but we ask you to bear with us. We are all having to learn new ways of doing things as we reemerge from this pandemic quarantine. This will feel awkward and confusing at times, but our goal here at church is to promote the health and safety of all of us. So we encourage everyone to make your own best decisions about participating either in person or online, virtually, and we encourage and support everyone to go at your own pace. And it is wonderful to see you today.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the entire congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm Leslie Blackburn, your worship associate for today's service. We gather together with our doubts as well as our convictions, with our fears and our hopes, with our failures and our aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whether you're joining us today for the first time or you've been a member or friend for many years, we are glad you are here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, whatever your background, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome. Now, as Lena Hurt comes forward, let us all say together here and from our homes the words for lighting our chalice. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share. And I invite you to join with us as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we covenant one with another.
And now, as you are willing and able, please turn to your hymnal to sing together. What a bonus. We didn't think that was going to happen for a while. Number 38, Morning Has Broken, one that's familiar to a lot of people. Please rise in body or spirit to sing together. And as we have done every Sunday since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the last service that we held in this space was March 8th, 2020. And Sal, who's an usher today, said he was here on that last day. So we do want to pause and take a moment before we go on, because even though we're joyful, understandably so, to be back together again, we realize we're not out of the woods yet. We've got a ways to go. And there's a lot going on within us. There's a lot going on around us, around the world, related to the pandemic and otherwise. So I just want to invite you into a time of brief silence as we hold all of this together in the gathered presence of this community, both in person and online. And the silence actually will be followed by a meditation reading and another brief silence. So please join with me now. The meditation words are a celebration of this community. This is the home that love made. Can you feel it? This is the home that the founders of this congregation envisioned when they first met in the northern Shenandoah Valley almost 50 years ago. This is the home that met in a few places before this beautiful church building was built on this beautiful campus. This is the home that love made. This is a home full of the love of all who have gathered here over all these many years, who celebrated and grieved here, children dedicated, couples married, family members mourned here, their memories honored in our beautiful memorial garden. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love we have for our children as they learn and laugh together, and our youth as they grow into their own sense of purpose and meaning. This is the home that love made, full of the love of the many people who have served this community in countless acts of dedication and hope. This is the home that love made. A home that is full of our love, the love of this community, the love that embraces our differences and holds us together through thick and thin. This is the home that our love has made and is making right now as we're finally together again in person. Can you feel it? Cause for gratitude. Please join with me in another moment of silence, a shared silence. And I invite you to imagine it as a cool drink of water to the deepest part of who you are. Join me in the silence.
Words for reflection today. First set are written by T.S. Eliot. What we call a beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. And Barbara Pescan, a UU minister, writes, "Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. Let us go remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily, to bow to the mystery."
Together again. Every new beginning comes after some kind of an end. Every ending brings some kind of new beginning. And even though all of us here today have been here before, it does kind of feel like the first time again, doesn't it? With so many of us privileged to be vaccinated and now able to begin returning to the activities that we've had to avoid for 15 months, a lot of us are noticing just how weird it is at first, right? On the one hand, we are like wanting to hug everybody we see, and yet on the other hand, still feeling weird about not wearing masks or standing so close or touching public surfaces again. Some of us who drastically reduced the amount of driving that we did over the past year and a quarter find it strange to actually be in a car and traffic again. We didn't forget how to do these things, but it sure does feel strange to be doing them again after such a long interruption. It's strange to feel enthusiastic and timid at the same time. That's why it is important for all of us to go at our own pace during this transition of social reentry. A lot has happened in the past 15 months. It's been much more than simply a long interruption. It has been truly venturing into uncharted territory of a brave new world in several respects. The COVID-19 pandemic has definitely been uncharted territory, overshadowing all other realities, touching every corner of the globe and every corner of our lives. But here in the United States, we've also been weathering uncharted political waters too. Rather than pulling together during a national and global health crisis, existing divisions within our country have grown deeper to the point of living in two very different realities and worldviews. And it's not just the failings of those who came before us that we are aware of. We have much more recent failings to contend with, failings that have happened on our watch. Despite the authentic joy we can feel in being able to return to church and other social aspects of our lifestyle, thanks to the availability of vaccines, we are still carrying much grief. generated in these past 15 months. We cannot forget the incredible loss of life we have witnessed, and the human failings responsible for not responding sooner or more effectively to minimize those losses. Frankly, this one is a grief too big for us to even fully take in at this point, I suggest. Except for the family, friends, and frontline responders, the medical community who witnessed it happening firsthand and experienced the helplessness and the grief. It's a grief that will take time for all of us to comprehend and mourn. And we can't talk about the COVID pandemic without naming the financial impact, especially that it had on those most vulnerable in our country, often those with the so-called essential jobs, the essential workers, people who risk their health, the health of their families, to keep our country going to work under extremely challenging conditions, many of whom are not even honored by a living wage. And in some ways, they're the lucky ones, right? Because they were lucky enough to have an income when so many have lost theirs. Lost jobs, livelihood, even homes. A lot of grief over the past 15 years that we can't forget. 15 months, it feels like 15 years sometimes. Oh my gosh. That in our joy, we can't just move on and pretend it didn't happen. Closer to home for us, largely privileged and living in the northern Shenandoah Valley, we are coming to terms with just beginning to see our families again who may live a little ways from us. The bittersweet reunions. Sad to be separated so long, sometimes having missed important family milestones. Funerals that help us grieve the loss of a loved one, or the joyful celebration of a new addition to the family, a new baby, or the important honoring of a significant life transition like a graduation. We have missed so much. Just last week when I came to church for a meeting, our office administrator, Cheryl, had her granddaughter with her in our church office, and I hadn't seen Kelsey in a year and a half, and wow, she had grown several inches. I might not have recognized her if I'd passed her on the street unless I looked very closely. She's taller now than Cheryl. Some of you who are grandparents, you know what I'm talking about here. And that weird feeling, if it's been a while since you've gotten to see your loved ones, the young ones. And speaking of our young people, it's frankly hard to imagine what living through a pandemic has been for them, how disruptive it has been for their growing up years in terms of school and friends. Sure, many have been able to adapt to online learning, but I fear much larger percentage of kids have not had that as an option, or for whom that option simply doesn't work as well for them, either for their educational or their social development. Kind of a lost year. I wonder how many people will look back from the future and consider this pandemic year to kind of be a missing year, a year of things we missed, a year without fill in the blank. As we begin to be together again, each in our own ways, we have to tend these losses. They were likely to be less visible than they would have been under so-called normal circumstances. They were likely to be more visible if there weren't so many of them. Even though we are able to be together again, at least some of us here in person today at church, in the coming weeks and months, we will be doing church differently, just as we will be doing a lot of things differently in our lives as a result of the pandemic. So I just want to give you that heads up that just like other institutions in our community, schools, medical practices, and government, here at church, we'll be doing some things differently too. Yes, we are together again, but we will continue to have to make some fairly big adjustments in our lives for a little while. Pace yourselves is what I say. Speaking for myself, as exciting as it is to be able to return to church and out in the world, I am personally and professionally exhausted by the past year under COVID-19. I imagine many of you are feeling in a similar way with whatever your concerns and responsibilities are. It has been a lot. So I want to close my message this morning with a reading from our hymnal. It's a reading that we normally return to for the Jewish New Year of Yom Kippur in the fall. It was written by the now retired UU minister Rob Eller Isaacs, who served with his wife as co-minister, first in Oakland, California for many years. Not first, but they were there quite a while. And then they were in St. Paul, Minnesota together before retiring. And I did want to just say that, by the way, our Sunday service next week, June 27th, will be an online service brought to us through the Unitarian Universalist Association and will be coming to us from Minneapolis. I'm sure it will have excellent speakers and excellent music, so you won't want to miss that. There'll be a link that's sent out. So this is a reading about beginning again, of starting over. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. for losing sight of our unity. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled an illusion of separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. May it be so. And now, before we close the service for today and prepare to have our annual meeting online and in person, I would like to invite you once again to grab your hymnals and sing together, Rising in Body or Spirit, for one of our favorites. It's 298, Wake Now My Senses. And we will sing all 5 verses. They're pretty short. So, and it's been such a long time since we have been able to sing together. So, enjoy.
Keep
As Lena extinguishes the flame, let us say together here and from our homes the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. The purpose of the church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. We hope you will consider making an offering after today's service through our webpage, uushenandoah.org. This will allow us to exercise that generosity of spirit for this self-supporting church and its many ministries, which continue while we're not able to be physically together. And we invite you to join our church community at noon for our virtual post-service gathering for Joys and Concerns, followed by our coffee hour conversations in smaller breakout rooms. The Zoom link is found in your UUCSV email. And thank you for joining us today.
Our closing words are adapted by the Unitarian Universalist minister Leonard Mason. We affirm the unfailing renewal of life. Rising from the earth and reaching for the sun, all living ones aim to grow into the fullness of our being. We affirm the steady growth of human companionship and community. Rising from ancient cradles and reaching for the stars, people the world over seek the ways of understanding within, beyond, and among ourselves. We affirm a continuing hope that out of every human tragedy, we can rise to build a new life and a better world. Stay strong, be safe. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.